Hello.
Out of nowhere, my wife drops this bombshell on me. She's moving her ex back into our house. And then, with total confidence, she tells me, "My folks aren't going to let you fight this." All I did was nod. Later that afternoon, I found myself sitting right across from her dad, saying something she never in a million years expected to come out of my mouth. By the time dinner rolled around, our little family meeting took a massive turn that absolutely nobody saw coming. Look, I'm 42 years old, I've been married for 14 years, and I just figured out that family loyalty apparently comes with a price tag, and I've been the only one footing the bill this entire time. My wife and I met back when we were both in our late 20s. She came from money, not like crazy mansion and yacht wealth, but they definitely had comfortable generational setup. Her parents ran a really successful regional business, the kind of gig that keeps a family set up nice for decades. Me? I came from regular middle-class roots. I put myself through college, worked hard, and built a pretty solid career for myself in operations management. When we got hitched, her parents made sure to point out that they were helping us with the down payment on our house as a wedding present. Back then, I genuinely appreciated it. I had no clue it came with invisible strings attached. Honestly, the first 10 years of our marriage were pretty smooth sailing. Sure, we had our usual couples arguments, but it was never anything that felt like a deal-breaker. Her parents were always pretty involved in our lives. Too involved, if I'm being honest. But I just figured they were just super family-oriented. Sunday dinners at their place were non-negotiable. Holiday plans had to run through them for approval. Any big life decision required their 2 cents. I just rolled with it because it made my wife happy. Then, maybe 6 months ago, her high school ex-boyfriend popped back into the picture. Apparently, the guy was going through a brutal patch. Divorce, losing his job, just a total personal meltdown. My wife mentioned he'd reached out to her for some advice, since they kept in touch loosely on social media over the years. I didn't think much of it at first. People reconnect with old buddies when times get tough, right? It seemed harmless. But then, the chatting started getting way more frequent. She'd be texting him right through dinner, taking his calls late at night, and spending hours on the phone playing therapist. When I finally brought up that it was getting to be a bit much, she flipped it on me. She told me I was just being insecure and controlling, that he was just a buddy who needed a hand, and that I needed to show some compassion. "He's going through a really dark time," she'd tell me. "He doesn't have anyone else to talk to." I asked her, "Doesn't the guy have family?" "They turned their backs on him," she said. "I'm all he's got right now." "What about his friends?" "Most of them took his ex-wife's side." "Look, I'm just trying to be a decent human being here. Why are you making a big deal out of nothing?" So I dropped it. I told myself I was just overreacting. But man, that gut feeling just wouldn't go away. 3 weeks ago, she came home from having lunch with her mom and sat me down at the kitchen table. She had this look on her face. Super determined but kind of nervous, like she'd been practicing her speech in the mirror. "We need to talk about something important," she said. I set my coffee cup down. "Okay, shoot. He's in a really bad place right now," she told me. "He lost his apartment and he can't afford rent anywhere decent. He's actually been living out of his car for the last 2 weeks. "Well, that's terrible," I said. "Has he looked into social services? There are programs out there for that." Then she hits me with, "I told him he could stay with us for a bit, just until he gets back on his feet." I just stared at her. "You told him what?" "He needs help," she insisted. "We have a spare room. It's just the right thing to do." "No," I countered. "The right thing to do is help a friend find some resources, not move your ex-boyfriend into our house." "He's not my boyfriend anymore," she snapped. "That was 20 years ago. He's just a friend who needs a hand. A friend you've been emotionally supporting so much that it's starting to mess with our marriage," I said. "You're being dramatic," she scoffed. "I'm helping someone in a crisis. There's a difference. And now you want him living under our roof without even talking to me first? I'm talking to you about it right now. No, you're telling me what's happening. Big difference. What would you do if you were in my shoes right now? Would you have lost your cool? or tried to talk her out of it. Right then, she got that exact look on her face, the one she always gets when she's about to drop her ultimate trump card. "My parents think it's a great idea," she said. "They're actually the ones who suggested it." "Of course they did," I muttered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means your parents have an opinion on every single detail of our lives, and you always take their side over mine." "That is not true." "When was the last time you actually disagreed with them on anything that mattered?" She didn't even try to answer that. Instead, she just dug her heels in. "Look, he's moving in this weekend. I already told him he could. If you've got a problem with it, you can take it up with my parents." "Why on earth would I take it up with your parents?" I asked, getting mad now. "This is our home, our marriage. Why do they get a vote in this?" "Because they helped us buy this place," she shouted. "Because they're family. Because they actually care about helping people instead of just being selfish." Man, that word selfish felt like a punch straight to the chest. For what? For not wanting my wife's ex-boyfriend moving into my space? "I don't agree to this," I said, keeping my voice quiet. "It's not up for a vote," she said flatly. "It's happening. And honestly, if you try to fight this, my parents aren't going to let you win. They've got my back." I just looked at her for a long, quiet moment. This was the woman I'd been married to for 14 years. This person was standing there threatening me with her parents like I was some kid being sent down to the principal's office. "Okay," I finally said. She blinked, totally thrown off. Okay. If that's the game you want to play, okay." I got up, walked straight into our bedroom, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the mattress trying to wrap my head around what the hell just happened. My wife had completely bypassed me to move her ex into our house, plotted the whole thing with her folks, threatened me with their backing if I made a fuss, and called me selfish for setting a basic boundary. I pulled out my phone, called her dad, and asked if I could come over to see him that afternoon. He sounded surprised, but he agreed to meet. I drove over to her parents' place around 2 o'clock. I'd already made sure her mom was out before I scheduled this, because this needed to be a man-to-man talk with her dad alone. He met me at the door, acting friendly like he always does. Come on in. Can I get you some coffee?" "No, thanks," I said. "I need to talk to you about something pretty serious." We went and sat down in his study, and he looked genuinely concerned. "Is everything all right?" "No, it's not," I told him. "Your daughter informed me this morning that she's moving her ex-boyfriend into our house this weekend. She claims you and her mother didn't just approve of it, but that it was your idea. She also made it clear that if I fight it, you guys won't let me win." He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "She told you that?" "Word for word." "Look, son," he started. "The guy is in a really tough spot. We just thought. I need you to understand something." I cut him off. "I'm not here to debate whether helping this guy is the right or wrong thing to do. I am here to tell you that I am absolutely not living under the same roof as my wife's ex-boyfriend, and I need to know right now if you actually intend to back her up on this." "She's my daughter," he said defensively. "Of course I'm going to support her. Even when she's completely in the wrong? I don't think she's wrong for trying to help someone out." "She's not just helping someone," I said. "She's been emotionally wrapped up with this guy for months now. She spends hours on the phone with him. She's putting him ahead of our marriage, and now she expects him to live with us. Do you honestly think that's appropriate?" He went dead quiet for a second. I didn't know about any phone calls." "Because she didn't tell you," I replied. "She's been hiding exactly how much time and emotional energy she's pouring into him. This isn't some act of charity. This is about her keeping a relationship alive that's actively threatening our marriage." He frowned. "That is a very serious accusation." "It's a very serious situation," I fired back. "And I need to know exactly where you stand. Because if you're going to throw your weight behind her on this, I have to start making my own decisions." "What kind of decisions are you talking about?" "The kind where I protect myself," I told him straight up. "The kind where I stop busting my back to maintain a marriage where I'm constantly getting outvoted by my wife's parents." The kind of decision where I go talk to a lawyer. The look on his face changed instantly. You're talking about divorce? I'm talking about facing reality, I said. Your daughter stood in our kitchen this morning and told me your opinion matters more than mine in my own home. That's not a marriage. That's just me being a tenant in a house ruled by her family. Now hold on a minute, he started. No, you hold on, I said, cutting him off. I've spent 14 years bending over backwards to accommodate your family's constant involvement in our lives. Every single Sunday dinner, every holiday plan, every major financial move. All of it. I've bitten my tongue every time you guys overstepped. I've gone along with stuff that made me totally uncomfortable just because I thought that's what you do for family. But this crosses a major line. We just want to help, he muttered. Then I looked him in the eye and asked, do you own our house? He blinked, completely thrown off. What? The down payment you gave us for a wedding gift, I said. Was it a gift, or was it a loan? Do you have any legal claim to our property? Of course not, he said. It was a wedding present, he admitted. All right then, I fired back. So why on earth does my wife think you guys have the legal authority to overrule me on who gets to sleep under my roof? He just sat there, completely speechless. He didn't have a single word to say to that. Here's exactly how this is going to play out, I went on. You are going to pick up your phone, call your daughter, and tell her straight up that moving her ex into our place without my green light is completely out of line. You're going to tell her that you and her mother don't actually back this little project of hers. And you're going to make sure she understands that she needs to start respecting her actual marriage a whole lot more than some old history with this guy. He looked at me and asked, and what if I decide not to do that? Then I'm heading straight to a lawyer's office to file for divorce. I told him flatly. And when your daughter demands to know why the marriage is over, I am going to tell her it's because her folks raised her to believe that marriage is a democracy where her family gets a bigger vote than her husband. Oh, and I'll also make absolutely sure everybody we know understands that you guys actively pushed her to move her old high school flame into our bed. Let's see how that little piece of gossip goes down with your fancy social circles. His face flushed bright red. That sounds a whole lot like a threat to me. No, it's a promise, I said. I am absolutely not going to sit there and be humiliated inside my own house while you guys pat yourselves on the back for being such saints. This nonsense ends right now or I walk away for good. The ball's in your court. I stood right up and he followed suit. I need to talk to my wife, he muttered. You do that, I replied. I'm going to grab a hotel room for the night, and I'll be waiting for your daughter to call me with a major change of plans. If my phone doesn't ring by tomorrow morning, you can expect to hear from my attorney by tomorrow afternoon. With that, I turned around and walked right out the door. Leave a comment with your thoughts on how I handled this. Did I push her dad too hard? Or was it time to finally draw a line in the sand? I drove downtown, checked myself into a hotel room, and shut my phone completely off for about 2 hours just to get some peace. When I finally powered it back on, my screen lit up like a Christmas tree. 17 missed calls. 12 were from my wife, 3 from her mother, and 2 from her old man. On top of that, I had a dozen text messages waiting for me. Most of them were from my wife, and you could see her mood shifting in real time from totally confused to furious to absolute panic. One read, "Where are you? Dad says you're threatening to divorce me. This is completely insane. Call me right this second." I didn't call her back. Not yet, anyway. I wanted to let them stew in the mess they made and really sit with the reality of their choices for a little bit. Then, right around 7 in the evening, a text came in from her dad. "Family meeting at our house at 8 o'clock. You need to be here." I texted right back, "I'll be there. Your daughter better be ready to explain her actions to everybody." I walked into their house at exactly 8 o'clock on the dot. My wife was already parked on the sofa, squeezed right next to her mother. Her dad was pacing back and forth by the fireplace, looking tense. Even her younger brother had been dragged into the mix. He was sitting there looking incredibly awkward, like a guy who knew he shouldn't be in the room but couldn't escape. I walked right in and took a seat in the armchair directly across from the whole lineup. Nobody said a word for what felt like a lifetime. Finally, her mother broke the silence. I really don't appreciate you coming into my home and threatening my husband this afternoon, she said, sourly. I didn't threaten a soul, I replied calmly. I simply laid out the natural consequences of your actions. There is a huge difference. You can't just expect us to stay completely out of our own daughter's life, she snapped. I never asked you to do that, I told her. I demanded that you stop undermining my position as her husband. Again, there's a big difference. That's when my wife jumped into the ring. This is just ridiculous, she yelled. You are blowing this whole thing way out of proportion. Am I really? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. Why don't you go ahead and tell your parents exactly what you told me at the kitchen table this morning? Word for word. She shot a nervous glance over at them. I just told him we were trying to help a person who's down on his luck. Nope, that's not it. I cut her off. You told me your ex-boyfriend was moving into our house this weekend, and you said if I tried to fight it, your parents wouldn't let me win. Go on, tell them that part. The room went completely dead quiet. Her brother looked over at her, totally stunned. Wait a minute. You actually said that to him? I was just frustrated, she stammered, turning red. I didn't actually mean. Yes, you did, I interrupted, not letting her squirm out of it. You meant every single word. You've been plotting this whole living situation behind my back with your parents for at least a week. You didn't come to me for a discussion. You handed me an ultimatum, and then you tried to use your family as leverage to scare me into falling in line. Her father cleared his throat, looking incredibly uncomfortable. Look, son, I honestly didn't realize just how deep your wife's connection with this guy actually went. My wife's head snapped over toward him so fast I thought she'd get whiplash. What? She gasped. Your husband just finished telling me that you've been glued to the phone with this guy for hours on end, and that this has been going on for months, her dad said, looking right at her. You conveniently left that part out when you asked us if it was okay for him to crash at your place. Because it doesn't matter, she shot back. I've just been helping a buddy get through a rough patch. It matters a whole lot, I chimed in. When that buddy happens to be a guy you used to date, and when keeping him afloat has officially taken priority over your own marriage. That is absolutely not true. Oh, really? Then tell me, when was the last time we sat down for dinner together without you running off to take a call from him? When was the last time we had a normal conversation that didn't get cut short by his text messages? When was the last time you actually chose us over him? She couldn't say a word. She just sat there, staring at me. Right then, her younger brother, bless the kid's heart, piped up and asked, Look, if mom and dad think helping this guy is such a huge deal, why can't he just stay with them? Why's he gotta move in with you guys? Everyone in the room frozen and looked straight at her parents. Her mother shifted uncomfortably on the couch, clearing her throat. Well, we actually offered, but he told us he'd feel a lot more comfortable staying with people closer to his own age. Right? I said, leaning forward, because a roof over his head isn't what he's looking for here. What he actually wants is 24/7 access to my wife. That is a disgusting thing to accuse him of, my wife yelled. Then prove me wrong, I challenged her. Hand me your phone right now. Let's show everyone in this room the messages you two have been sending back and forth. No way, she snapped. That's private. Private from your own husband? Come on. You're just trying to make me feel guilty for being a decent human being. No. I'm trying to make you realize that you are actively gambling our entire marriage on a guy who shouldn't even be on your radar. That's when her dad finally spoke up. You know what, I think he's right. My wife spun toward him, looking completely betrayed. Dad, look, you didn't give us the whole story, he said, holding his hands up. You made it sound like you were just casually tossing a lifeline to an old school friend. You never mentioned you'd spent months pouring all this emotional energy into him. That changes the whole picture. Marriage has to come first. And if your husband is this uncomfortable with the setup, that carries weight. So what? I'm just supposed to turn my back on someone who's completely stranded? She asked, her voice cracking. No, you're supposed to help him find professional resources. I told her. You don't move him into our house. There are shelters, community programs, and social services for exactly this kind of thing. Look, if you want to help him out financially, we can sit down like adults and talk about chipping in for a security deposit on a place of his own. But he is absolutely not living under our roof. Period. And what if I already promised him he could? Then you pick up the phone and tell him you made a mistake, I said flatly. You tell him you didn't have your husband's green light and you can't follow through with it. You apologize and you help him look for other options. She looked around the living room, realizing she was completely out of moves. She looked at her parents, who were suddenly dead quiet. She looked at her brother, who was throwing me a sympathetic glance. And then she looked at me, probably seeing a look in my eyes she'd never seen before. I can't believe you just ambushed me like this in front of my family, she whispered. You ambushed me at the kitchen table this morning. I told her straight up. This is just me responding to the hand you played. The whole meeting wrapped up with my wife reluctantly giving in and agreeing that her ex wouldn't be moving into our place. Her parents finally threw their weight behind me. Her mom was pretty quiet the rest of the night, clearly hating the fact that she had to side against her own daughter, but her dad held his ground. My wife stormed out of her parents' place in a total fury, but I stayed behind for a couple of minutes to talk to her old man one-on-one. I appreciate you backing me up in there, I told him. He nodded, looking tired. I honestly had no clue things had gotten that out of hand. She's always been incredibly stubborn. Loyal to a fault sometimes. This isn't about loyalty, I said. This is about basic respect and boundaries. I know, he sighed. Look, son, I need to apologize to you. We've been way too involved in your marriage for a long time, and I'm just now realizing it. That down payment we gave you guys for the house? It was supposed to be a wedding gift. But looking back, I think we've been holding it over your heads like it bought us a permanent vote in your lives. Yeah, I said honestly. You have. I'm truly sorry for that, he said. Stops right now. Does it really? I asked him. Or does it just stop until the next time your daughter gets upset about something and expects you to swoop in and fight her battles? He looked pretty uncomfortable with that question. I'm going to have a serious talk with my wife. We need to set up some better boundaries on our end, too. I left shortly after that. I didn't go back to the house, though. I spent another night at the hotel because I desperately needed some quiet space to figure out what my next move was. Around midnight, my phone rang. It was my wife, so I picked up. Are you coming home? She asked. Eventually, I said. When? When I'm ready to. This is getting childish, she sighed. You got exactly what you wanted. He's not moving in. Why are you still punishing me? I'm not punishing you, I told her calmly. I am currently trying to process the fact that my wife tried to force her ex-boyfriend into my home, and then threatened me with her parents when I said no. I didn't threaten you. Yes, you did. And the fact that you still can't see that is a massive part of the problem. The line went completely quiet for a second. Then she asked, Fine. What do you actually want from me? What do you think about this? Was I right to stay at the hotel? Or should I have gone home once the ex was officially blocked from moving in? I want you to actually understand why what you did was so incredibly wrong, I told her. I don't just want you to nod your head and agree not to do it. I need you to understand that what you did was a massive betrayal. You tried to play savior at the total expense of our marriage, my comfort, and my boundaries. You did it entirely without my input, and then you used your family as leverage to bully me into it. Those aren't the actions of a partner. So what do you want? An apology? I want you to actually mean it when you apologize. I want you to look in the mirror and figure out why you thought any of this was acceptable in the first place. I need you to start putting our marriage ahead of whatever emotional connection you've got going on with this guy. I do not have an emotional connection with him, she insisted. You've been talking to him for hours every single day for months. I countered. You defended him over your own husband. You literally tried to move him into our house. If that's not an emotional connection, you tell me what is. She didn't have an answer for that. I'll be home tomorrow afternoon, I told her. But we are going straight into marriage counseling. That is completely non-negotiable. Fine, she muttered. And you're going to call him up? Tell him he can't stay with us, and you're going to tell him exactly why. You need to tell him it's completely inappropriate given the massive strain it's putting on your marriage. I already told him he couldn't come, she said. And what exactly did you say to him? I just told him my husband wasn't comfortable with it. So we need to figure out a different plan. Did you tell him why I wasn't comfortable? I asked. Did you tell him that you've been pouring way too much emotional energy into him and it's destroying our marriage? That we need boundaries? No, she said. I just told him you weren't okay with it. So you made me out to be the bad guy. I did not. Yes, you did. You blamed it entirely on my discomfort instead of taking ownership of your own choices. That isn't taking accountability. What on earth do you want me to say to the guy? She cried out. I want you to tell him the absolute truth, I said. Tell him that you've been leaning on him emotionally in ways a married woman has no business doing. Tell him you need to step back completely and focus on your marriage. Tell him that even though you care about him as a friend, you cannot keep up this level of involvement anymore. That just feels incredibly cruel, she whispered. It's honest, I replied. And if being honest feels cruel to you, that should tell you everything you need to know about what you've been doing. With that, she hung up on me. I drove back to the house the following afternoon. My wife was sitting there, and it was obvious she'd been crying her eyes out. We sat down in the living room and spent hours just talking everything through. Finally, the dam broke, and she admitted that she'd been using this guy as a total emotional escape hatch. She confessed that our marriage had started feeling a bit stale to her, and talking to him brought back this wave of excitement and nostalgia. She said that playing the savior made her feel deeply needed and important in a way she hadn't felt around our house lately. Why didn't you just come to me and tell me you were feeling that way? I asked her. Because I didn't want to hurt your feelings, she admitted. And honestly, I didn't want to admit out loud that I was just bored. Bored? Not with you, she clarified quickly. With us. With the daily routine. With the life we've built. It's totally comfortable and stable, and I know I should be incredibly grateful for it, but sometimes I just feel completely stuck. So instead of pulling together to work on our marriage, you decided to invest all that energy into him? I didn't see it that way at the time, she wept. I genuinely just thought I was helping an old friend out. But now I see exactly how it looked, and how it actually was. I am so incredibly sorry. We officially agreed to start marriage counseling right away. On top of that, I drew a hard line and insisted she cut off all contact with her ex entirely. No cutting back, no casual check-ins, total radio silence. She pushed back against it at first, but she eventually saw reason and agreed to do it. A few days later, her parents called. Her mom gave me a pretty stiff, awkward apology for crossing the line, and her dad reiterated that they were going to step back and keep out of our marriage moving forward. I appreciated them saying it, but honestly, I didn't completely buy that it would last forever. As for the ex, he actually sent me a direct message on social media about 2 weeks after the whole blow-up. It said, I'm really sorry for any trouble I caused between you two. I never had any intention of getting in the middle of your marriage. I truly hope you guys can iron things out. I didn't even bother replying. I just blocked his account and moved on. All of that drama went down about 6 months ago. We've been sitting on a therapist's couch every single week since then. The progress has been pretty slow, but it's definitely real. My wife has been way more open about her internal struggles, and she's actually willing to talk through the rough patches in our relationship now instead of running off to find validation from outsiders. On my end, I've been working really hard on being more present and emotionally engaged, rather than just coasting through our life together on autopilot. Her folks have surprisingly stayed completely out of our hair. There was actually one incident a couple of weeks back where her mother tried to lock us into plans without asking us first, and my wife stood up and shut it down herself. She told her mom that they need to consult us about plans, not just inform us of them. Man, I was incredibly proud of her in that moment. From what I hear, the ex ended up finding another place to crash, finally got back on his feet, and landed a job. My wife still follows his pages on social media, but she doesn't like or comment on any of his stuff. I still take a peek at her phone every now and then, not because I'm trying to catch her, but because earning trust back takes a lot of time. Our marriage isn't entirely perfect, but for the first time in a long time, it feels like it belongs entirely to us. We make our decisions as a team. We put each other first. And we don't go hiding behind family or old flames the second things get heavy. Looking back on this whole mess, I learned that sometimes the only real way to save a marriage is to be completely willing to walk away from it. Boundaries don't mean a thing if you aren't ready to actually back them up with real consequences. And family getting too mixed up in a marriage can turn toxic incredibly fast, even if they claim they mean well. My wife learned the hard way that emotional affairs are still affairs. She learned that nostalgia is a massive trap, and that the grass isn't actually greener on the other side, it's just a different kind of grass. Marriage takes active, daily effort. You can't just passively exist in it. Her parents learned that being a good mom and dad doesn't mean blindly backing your kid when they're making a mess of things. Sometimes, truly supporting your kid means telling them straight to their face that they are completely in the wrong. And they finally realized that their wedding gift didn't buy them a lifetime proxy vote on our life choices. Who knows exactly where we'll be in another 6 months or a year down the road. But right now, we are actually rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work on ourselves instead of pretending everything is just fine while the whole house burns down. And honestly, that's a pretty huge win. The house feels like it's just ours now. No ex-boyfriend sleeping in our guest room, and no parents dictating who gets to live here. Just the two of us trying to build a life that's actually worth holding on to. It's definitely not the ending I would have pictured 6 months ago. It's not some grand revenge story where I packed my bags. Everything fell apart for her, and I rode off into the sunset victorious. It's just two people who came incredibly close to losing each other, making the conscious choice that maybe, just maybe, they're still worth fighting for. And honestly, maybe that's more than enough.
Bye bye.